We are back, MLS Aces Podcast, episode 318. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, joined once again for our weekly episode, Jason Vevang. How are you doing, buddy? Glad to talk to you after missing our typical episode last week.
Yeah, I'm good. Like I was telling you before, it's quite cold in Chicago, but we're coming out of it. It's supposed to be, like 20. It's funny because like when it's as cold as it was, where it's like negative, and then with wind it gets even more. I feel like when it's 20 or 30 degrees out, I'm like, oh, it's warm out. It's warm today, and like I go out, I'm like, this isn't even cold, because you get so like hammered by like a negative 20-degree day. You're just like, Literally. What is going on? You step outside, you could throw a cup of water in the air and it doesn't come down.
Literally.
I don't know, but I'm good. I'm great. I'm doing good.
You also just told me you were curled up next to a space heater for like a night.
That was because the heat in my apartment stopped working for 2 days during the coldest 2 days of the year. But yeah, I was using a space heater as my warmth and freezing for the rest of that.
This is when I think like New York is cold, and New York is cold, but then you tell me like Chicago and negative temperatures, and I just never want to. I just want to go south.
New York is warm. I've been to New York many times, and it's warm. It's so warm.
The city itself is warm because there's a million people. Like the steam from the underground and the subway and all that warms it so much. But yeah, I mean, I think you get outside that it's a little it's a little cold. But I want to give a quick update. We're doing well so far with the New Year's resolution of the podcast of 2 episodes a week. Obviously, this week's only going to be 1 episode. There was a holiday on Monday with MLK Day, so we're going to, respect the holiday, keep it to the 1 this week. I already have next Monday's interview recorded. It's going to drop. It's going to be all good, and then we'll be back next Thursday as well. So we're doing good. We're doing good with that, Jason. And then
how about the reviews? Anything come in yet?
I was going to say part 2 of it. We are 5 YouTube subscribers away from the goal. We are 8 Spotify reviews away from the goal, and we're 5 Apple reviews away from the goal that we set and put out there on social media.
How many was the goal? I feel like that's a lot. I didn't think we'd get it that fast.
I think I went low expectations first. Like when you go up to a restaurant and they tell you it's like an hour wait, and they like sit you down after like 30 minutes, and you're like, wow, that's really cool. I think that was the expectations that I was kind of setting for myself, and then we'll do it big. After we hit this goal, we'll do a bigger goal. And we'll leave it at that.
Are they good reviews? Should I avoid them or?
Just don't look. Just don't look. It's fine. No, I don't know. There wasn't many like written out reviews.
Oh, that makes sense.
Reviews and stars coming in. Which, look, if you're listening to this, watching this, you haven't done so, please do so. It helps us out. We're trying to hit some goals. We're trying to be a little bit more, I think, productive with things. So do that. And if you just want to leave stars, that's cool. If you want to write something, that's cool as well. So let's take the step forward into this week's episode and to continue to not talk about soccer. And sorry about this, folks, but Jason and I felt, and we just had a whole conversation.
We'll get into soccer quite quick, okay?
Exactly.
We can handle it.
This is going to take another 5 minutes, maybe probably less than that.
It's also partially about MLS, right? So
exactly. So it was announced on social media on January 21st that Extra Time, the league's main podcast show that ran for 15 years, had its last episode yesterday, the 21st. It was the final drop. It was Andrew Wiebe, Matt Doyle, David Goss, some of the, not the OGs, because I think they all kind of came in a little bit later on, but, the trio that I think was there for the longest of the shows running. The news, I don't know. Also, to peel back the curtain, I had a family member pass away last week. That's why there was 2 interviews, and I'm a little, still upset about that. But I think the news of it hit me a little bit harder than expected. Again, maybe the death in the family also doesn't help that. But I think it's just a sad day to an extent, I think, for U.S. soccer coverage in America, right? Like, Extra Time is one of those shows, is one of those programs, has had some of the people on the show that I think has shaped many perspectives has shaped the love and the growth of soccer for fans, for people around the sport and the sport itself, right? Weeby, Doyle, Goss, Kalen Carr, Charlie, Davey, Susanna Collins, Bobby Warshaw, Kalen Kyle. Like, that was like the group that I mainly remember listening to, watching. Again, I know there was people beforehand. I was probably too young and also, wasn't into MLS at that time. But that group really shaped my love for the game, gave me one of the people, or one of the shows that gave me the idea for wanting to have my own show, put my own opinions out there. And it's obviously led to MLS Aces and our show and what it is now, Jason. But I think the tactical breakdowns, the conversations, the interviews, the lighthearted jokes, the Goss theorem, right? Like, all this stuff that we kind of use today in basic MLS or US soccer conversation sparks from Extra Time. And the fact that the show's ending after 15 years, 15 years of anything is a very long time. So congratulations and shout out to them. But 2, is just a sad day. It hurts to an extent, because now I'm going to go every single week, try to refresh my feed and try to hear, Weeby's intro and everything like that to the show. But it's just, I think it's another outlet that helped create such a special thing, U.S. soccer and the fandom of U.S. soccer, and it's ending, and it's done. It's sad, and I don't know what other words to put to it besides it's sad. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you to those guys, the girls and the producing Anders and everyone else in between. Extra Time was a special thing. So, that was my piece. Jason, I know you wanted to speak a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo everything you've said, obviously. Like, I think personally it's sad because it represents, like, this was an MLS league sponsored show, and it sort of helped me personally, and I think a lot of people go from like casual fans, and that's something we talked about just like 10 minutes ago before we started recording, but it's a casual fans into something more. It made me into something more, and I'm not going to sit here and say I listened to every episode. I probably towards the end was only listening once or a month or two. But it allowed for more voices. And I think in the MLS and growing the sport, by taking this away is actually hurting the growth of the sport in some ways.
Yeah.
I think it allowed for casual fans who wanted more. They just got a ton of new fans when Messi came into MLS. The league itself gained tons of new followers, tons of new fans. Some of those people, whether that's, 10%, 20%, 50%, I don't know, but even if it was 5% if those people went from, oh, this is actually kind of a fun league, to then really caring and finding those voices and finding those shows that dig a little deeper, maybe you get way more long-term, lifelong fans in the league, whereas there's a chance that after Messi is gone, a lot of those people leave, and don't continue watching. And I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen. I don't know. I'm sure there's people on both sides. But I think having league-sponsored shows, having shows that inspire people to like actually learn and think about things and hear people's opinions, when there's a new big signing, or it doesn't even have to be a big signing. When there's a new signing for your team, you want to hear people's opinions on it. You want to formulate your own and then have and see what other people think, and people that you trust and believe make, good commentary, right? And I think Extra Time provided that excellent commentary, whether it was breaking down games or signings or off-season moves or new coach hires, things we try to do as well. But it's like they gave additional commentary that I think was super valuable to growing the league. And taking it away, like you said, after 15 years, it's like the league, I don't think, is where it is without that show at all. I don't think it's anywhere close. So I don't know. I think that's why it feels sad for me. And like you said, just respect to all the people that worked on that show. Yeah. I know for you, it's been a big thing. For me, it was a big thing to help me grow and learn more about soccer and be more interested. So it's just sad.
I don't want to dive down a 20-minute conversation of Extra Time. I want to leave it be where it is. But yes, I know.
Also, let's not end on that sad note. You know what? That show's amazing. All those people are so talented. They're probably going to succeed wherever they go. Yeah. So, I hope to see them all succeeding in a week.
And look, you're gonna see Doyle and Weeby still on Apple TV and through their content on MLSsoccer.com. Obviously Soccer Wise, which is a fantastic show program that David Goss and Tom Bogert do every single week and they put out on podcast platforms, social media, YouTube, all of that. They're filling a large void in that as well. Obviously David Goss again and Bogert were both part of Extra Time and now doing Soccer Wise. And hopefully, we are not, I don't think we are at the same impact level of an Extra Time, Jason, but hopefully we can, if you see the first time you're listening to this or the 100th time you're listening to this podcast, hopefully we can be a little void filled as well.
Hey, we always welcome new people, obviously, and hopefully we can give, just half as good of takes as those guys did and to continue our development, so.
Exactly. It's U.S. Soccer development pipeline, U.S. Soccer podcasting, a development pipeline. That's pretty much it, man. But let's dive into the U.S. Soccer, right? And I think one of the big things that we missed last week when we didn't record, again, hand up, that's my situation over there, but was the new MLS roster rules, right? There's a few different things that came out, and I think we should kind of break it down one at a time because there's a lot, and I don't want to throw it all out there at once and then confuse everyone. So I think, Jason, let's start with what I think you and I agree with kind of as the maybe the most important thing from this is the cash for player trades. All that pretty much means is you can just buy and sell players inter MLS now. They want to call it a cash for player trade. That's fine. We'll call it whatever you want to call it. We've talked about GAM for years now. But MLS clubs may now use an unlimited amount of cash to trade for players within the league. Clubs can only acquire 2 players and trade away 2 players per season for cash. Clubs can convert revenue from these trades into GAM if they want it. And cash can not be bundled with GAM, international roster spots, super draft picks, anything like that. If it's cash, it's cash. If you want to do GAM, you can include that other stuff then. And then if a DP or a U22 player is traded away for cash, they must remain as a DP or U22 player on the new club's roster. So if, let's just say, Sebastian Driussi, instead of going to River Plate, was traded to Chicago Fire, he had to have been a DP on the Chicago Fire as well. So, Jason, first overall thoughts of this new roster mechanic, I guess.
I'm personally a big fan of it. I think just having another outlet for players internally in the league to switch teams, or if it's not necessarily working somewhere and another team finds that value, then I think it's a great thing. It allows for some of the bigger stars in MLS as well to not necessarily have to leave the league, essentially, if the teams can no longer, pay or operate at that level. So I think overall I'm pretty happy with it. I think we've seen already some buzz with a guy like Evander in Portland and maybe even Lucho Acosta, potential for this type of thing to move them somewhere else in MLS. I think it's interesting. I'm curious to see when it starts getting used, right? Because I don't think officially we've had any moves.
There has been no official cash for trade moves.
Yeah, there's just been a slight rumors. Like I said, with Evander, I think was probably the biggest one.
I think Evander and Lucho are probably the biggest two. I mean, just to hit on the first point you were saying there, it definitely now kind of, I think, creates an environment where you don't have to sell stars outside of Major League Soccer. You get to keep them in the league. Or if I'm the Colorado Rapids and I don't want to fully bring in this winger because how is he going to adapt to the league? Yes, other profiles like that person may have worked before, but I know Talis Magno with New York City FC isn't happy. He doesn't want to be there. He's not playing whatever. Maybe I can now spend $10 million and go get Talis Magno from New York City. Random example in my head, but it's the premise of that I think it just allows for a new way for one, clubs to build their roster, and two, instead of being forced, like Evander is a player that I feel like should remain in MLS until he retires. If Portland or if Evander wanted to leave Portland, it would have had to have been for Brazil, Saudi Arabia, the championship, whatever. Now this leaves an opportunity where MLS fans get to watch Evander every single week, and he's potentially traded to FC Dallas as a replacement for Velasco, or traded to Cincinnati if Cincinnati moves on from Lucho Acosta, So I think it's a benefit, one, for the league, but it's also a benefit, two, for these players to, if they don't necessarily want to leave the U.S., they're just not happy with their club, they can now move on.
Yeah, keep the talent in the league. Especially, I think your point about, like, would you rather buy the unknown European player that you don't know how he's going to adjust, or buy the guaranteed, 15 goals?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I think there's an argument to be made there, and sometimes one or the other might be the better option, but at least there is two options.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say go trade for cash for Talis Magno, but don't go get Jonathan Bamba. Like, I'm not saying that, and we'll talk about Jonathan Bamba later on in the episode, but I think it allows for an opportunity where if you're a 29-year-old DP and, Montreal sees that value there, where maybe, again, there's off the field, on the field issues with this player who's playing for Orlando, it allows for, I think, a lot more flexibility from the coaching staff, the front office, the player, and everything in between. And the statement came out from the MLSPA, the Players Association, that they were all for this, and it's a 2-year probationary window of this kind of initial phase of it. So if it is successful, if it does allow for maybe more player movement and players wanting to kind of go to where they want to play, I can see this now expanding past the 2 players in, 2 players out per season, and maybe being a little bit more of an expansive interleague market, which I think would be fun. But we will see who sets the tone, because eventually I think it's Evander or Lucho is going to be the one that sets, like, how much is
Lucho's going to kill me. Like, Cincinnati letting him go to somewhere else in MLS is insane. But
it's just like, how much is Lucho worth inside of MLS?
A lot.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I'm literally talking about a number, right? Like, Cincinnati brings in Kevin Denke from the Belgian Pro League, right, for 16 million or whatever it is. Is Lucho Acosta? Yes, he's 30 or 31. He's not Denke's age. So is he worth 8 million? Is he worth 10 million? I don't think anyone really fucking knows until it happens.
Yeah, that's hard to say, right? But you have what you know. You have your MVP player.
No, I agree. I fully agree. Anything else on the cash for trade front?
Nope.
All right. So the second big thing, obviously this one's pretty short, pretty simple. MLS has added a second contract buyout. I think that's huge. We've seen it be successful. Obviously, we can look at the Chicago Fire this offseason. Gaston Jimenez gone, and we'll talk about some DPs in, but that's just a nice additional roster mechanic. Next one, GAM no longer has an expiration date. Prior to this, I did not know this. I'll put my hand up and say that. I didn't know GAM expired after 3 transfer windows. Dude. That's wild. That is wild.
Insane. No, my money no longer works.
I mean, literally, like after 3 windows, after a year and a half, it's done. So it's cool. I mean, like, if you're Atlanta, you can stockpile 20 million in GAM after a few years
those books
if you really want to. So that's, again, another way that clubs can build their roster in different ways or have extra cash to do so. And then the last piece that I feel like is important to kind of talk through a little bit.
I personally think this is the biggest. Well, I think the cash thing is important, but I find this more interesting in terms of like what teams can do.
That's fair. That's fair. So the off-roster homegrown players, so pretty much players on your MLS Next Pro rosters, are now eligible to appear in up to 6 MLS matches, along with an unlimited amount of first-team appearances in cup competition. So that's Champions Cup, Open Cup, Leagues Cup, Canadian Championship, and the Campeones Cup. I think I named all of them there. The player must be 21 years old or younger, and once they are given a senior or supplemental roster spot, so pretty much once they're signed from MLS Next Pro and given like a homegrown contract or a full MLS contract, they cannot be converted back. They do not fall into this category. I'll just say this piece, Jason, and I'll let you go. This is pretty much the fix for the Columbus Crew roster disaster of 2024, where They had Sean Zawatsky playing goalkeeper because they didn't have enough goalkeepers, and they used all their call-ups already because they were in the most competitions of any club in MLS. This is just it makes sense. Allow more opportunities for younger players to play, and maybe if you're a successful MLS club and you're playing in a lot of competitions and winning a lot of games, you should be allowed a little bit more flexibility to maybe not wear down all of your players' legs constantly. But I'll let you go, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me this is interesting or good for the league in general. It's just because, like, I mean, we saw the whole U.S. Open Cup situation and teams opting out, or I don't know if it's even opting out. Whatever they did, they just decided, MLS just decided, nah, we're not treating that the same as we did.
More of a league thing for sure, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's not like teams opting out and more like the league opting out. But hopefully this, in my opinion, could reestablish that. I think at the end of the day, though, what interests me the most about this is that we're going to get to see some young kids play in real, potentially MLS games or cup games and competitions. Yeah. And that gives so much development in eyes on some of these, maybe stars in the making, right? Like there's a lot of good homegrown players or teams in academies or players in academies at some of these clubs that deserve these chances. So I think I just don't see any downside to this. So I like it a lot. I think I think the teams that are deeper, the teams that are like Columbus, like LAFC, even Miami, like there's going to be teams that benefit from this way more than others. But everyone, at least like the players themselves, the younger players themselves who are trying to make it, are benefiting, I think, the most, right? And they're going to get looked at. And if they deserve their chances. So I think it's a good move for the players.
I'll also say, right, like, again, if we're going to use the Columbus as the example, if I'm like Darlington Nagbe and I was forced to, go play midweek against Houston and then have to go play Champions Cup against T-Grace on the weekend, like if I'm Darlington Nagbe, I'm almost like, thank God. Like, I don't have to go play 65 games this season.
Yeah, I mean, this helps the first team and it helps the kids who are trying to get their 100%. Shot. So, like, it literally, like, it is – in terms of the players themselves, which I think we can agree that we all support more, maybe more than some of the clubs, but I think in terms of the players, this is huge for them. In anyone, you either get your chance or you get your rest, and we probably see better competition. We probably don't end up with a Colorado team that has like 0 of their stars at the end of the season. I think there's a good chance that the level of play in general heading into the playoffs goes up. So I think that's a positive.
I mean, look, it's most likely in 2025, Inter Miami and the Seattle Sounders are going to play the most games in a single calendar year that any MLS club team has ever played between the 17 fucking competitions that they're in. And we'll see what happens between Leagues Cup, Open Cup, all that fun stuff. So we'll see. And I think this is just a benefit, again, helping not build a roster, but I think maintaining a roster more with that rule. All right. Let's get into it, Jason, with the actual on-field news, I guess. Toronto FC, they have hired Robin Fraser as their next manager in club history. He last managed for the Colorado Rapids back in 2023. He came into his managerial career with Chivas USA between 2011 and 2012. No one did well with Chivas, so I don't think anyone would hold that against him. In 2013 and 2014, he was with the Red Bulls as an assistant manager. Then he joined the Toronto FC as an assistant manager between 2015 and 2019. And then in the summer of 2019, got his second shot at being a manager with the Rapids, where he had a final record of 46 wins, 35 draws, and 48 losses in 129 games. Jason, Robin Fraser back in a head coaching spot, obviously very well respected, I think, behind the scenes from a lot of people you talk to, very well respected within the Toronto FC organization. But what do you make of him being back into a club where there was a lot of winning as he was an assistant?
Yeah, I think it helps that he was an assistant because to me, I wasn't thrilled with the hire. I think, especially where they're at right now, I'm not super sure that Fraser can get them, completely turn around or get everyone on the same page, because clearly there's issues in that whole organization at the moment.
Yeah, just a little bit, maybe, we'll say.
I mean, regardless of who he's managed, the numbers don't jump off the page either to me. I don't want to sound super doom and gloom on this. I think him being an assistant, knowing the club, knowing the area, knowing some of the players, knowing the organization is really a positive. I just think I think there's better options, and I think to me it's sort of like a fine hire. Like, could it be successful? Sure, but it doesn't even feel like the safe hire to me. It feels a little risky, and like they're going to be asking him to do a lot when he hasn't proven to me that he can totally turn around a team.
I disagree with a few things. I think I would say he is the safe hire, right? He's someone who knows the organization, has had success with the organization, knows what, day in, day out, week in, week out was done.
It's safe in terms of we know him. It's not necessarily safe in terms of results on the field.
But I think that we know him, Toronto FC knows him, and again, he knows like the way for success. I think brings them up to a safe level. I'm not saying that's playoff level. I'm saying it could be playoff level. And again, if it is playoff level, it's not even like,
I'll be surprised if it's playoff level.
I would be surprised as well. But what I'm saying is I think Robin Fraser has proven enough to me that he can build a good MLS team. I'm not saying MLS Cup champion, but I'm saying if you were the Toronto FC organization that right now I would say is arguably the biggest dumpster fire in Major League Soccer, you need stability, and I think Robin Fraser brings you stability. That's my only argument to it.
I see, but like I think if you're Toronto and you have reached the heights, the highest of highs, almost a dynasty, some would probably call it. Less than a decade ago. Is it almost a decade ago now? Actually?
Honestly, yeah.
That's crazy. But I kind of want them to be more ambitious. I want them to go out and show us that there's still life in there.
They were ambitious. They signed 2 Italian national team players and the Canadian men's national team head coach, and it blew up. They were ambitious.
That is fair. So I guess if you put it in the context, it's like, okay, the safe thing might be the option. But to me, I want more from Toronto. I'm sorry. They were so, like you said, they're arguably one of the worst run organizations currently in the league.
Yes. That's why
unlucky.
I'm okay.
I don't know. The nice way would be like they've gotten really unlucky. And I don't know. Maybe that's a good point of using the safe hire. To me, I'm just not that excited about it. It's not my number one. Let's see how he turns around Toronto this year. I don't think. Well, I guess we'll find out. And I could be completely wrong. But I don't think Toronto's going to be making huge waves.
I don't think so as well. I think they need to get out of two specific contracts before anything else.
Yeah,
but
that I think is more important.
The final thing that I just have my opinion on with the hire is I get MLS front offices like to go for MLS experienced head coaches, right? There's a thing to it. They know the league, they know how it operates, and blah blah blah. I think the only other person that I would have been I would have loved, if you're going to go down the MLS experience route, I would have loved for you to bring in was Gio Savarese. Gio won in Portland, where I can't sit here and again, exclude Chivas USA. I can't sit here and say Robin Fraser won a bunch or got me overly excited with Colorado. There was good moments. There was bad moments.
He was roughly mid the entire time.
Exactly. So Gio at least made an MLS Cup. I think he brought a lot of success to Portland. So that would have been the hire that I would be like, yeah, I love this. I think.
But that's the thing. That's almost a safe hire. MLS experience, knows his way around the league. Has success in the league, but a little bit more ambitious. I'm not asking them to go out and sign somebody from Australia or something. I'm just curious. Couldn't they have done more? And I think they definitely could have.
And I also want to obviously throw out there, I know Jim Curtin is a free agent manager. I don't think Jim Curtin is going to take a job until the summer. So that is what has been thrown out there, and it makes sense. So I'm
Give
Jim
him his
Curtin's
time off.
removed from this conversation.
What do you want, Toronto? What do you want that?
Exactly. And I also think he's in a piece where he can maybe pick his next job a little specifically.
Yeah, wait till
Another club that I feel like could have gone the Gio Savarese route, and Tom Bogert has said he was a finalist for this job, is the Vancouver Whitecaps, and the final head coaching vacancy in Major League Soccer has been filled. The Whitecaps have hired Jesper Sorensen for their managerial role. The 51-year-old Danish manager last managed Brøndby in Denmark. In his career, he has managed Brøndby, FC Fredericia, and Silkeborg IF. With Silkeborg, he won the Danish second division and obviously earned promotion through that during the 2013-2014 season. In his career, he has a record of 93 wins, 50 draws, and 72 losses in 215 games. A Danish experienced manager who has had some success in Denmark and has managed a pretty large club in Denmark. Did not think that's where the Whitecaps was going, but here we are, and this is also a club that's up for sale right now too. So I don't know how to break this down. I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at his like career history because I was like, it's a low amount of games for managing since like 2013.
Yeah, he was involved in the Danish national team for
only for 1 year. He was the Denmark U21 coach.
So he knows.
But he spent a lot of time as an assistant in between head coaching jobs. He went head coach. He went assistant head coach for a year. The year they won. What? Wait.
He got promotion and then dipped.
And then he dipped, was an assistant back at where he was for the first 4 years of career for a year. Then he did, not even for a year, just says 2015. Then 15 to 18, he was managing Fredericia. Then an assistant for Brøndby, then Denmark, then Brøndby. So a kind of an interesting little pathway here. I don't know. I don't really know much about the teams, so I'm not going to sit here and say I like it or I don't. I don't know. It's an interesting move for Vancouver. I like Vancouver's team a little bit. So yeah. I think, maybe this is their ambitious hire, hoping he can, do something crazy over there.
I was going to sit here and say, if there is, I think, any role that you're going to walk into and at least contend for a playoff spot, it's what Vancouver is right now. You have, a potential MVP candidate in Ryan Gauld. You have some pretty good Canadian youth that's been developed. You have Brian White, who is always finishing like top 10 in goals scored just quietly every single year.
He has one flash every year of like 5 games where he has like 8 goals.
Literally, where he looks like, I can't even think of a name right now, but whatever. He looks like a really good striker.
First half season, Chicho Arango.
But yeah, look, I don't know much about the guy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you or the listeners or the viewers of this, we know who Jesper Sorensen is. Not a big Danish soccer fan, sorry. But I think if he is going to come in and build off of a career path where he was given one of the top jobs in Danish soccer with Brøndby, he's going to then have that success with the Whitecaps because this is a playoff team. This is a good team. Again, we know the talent. We know everything in between there. I'm interested to see how this lines up with the club being sold, but that's for a future
episode. What's funny is, and this might be crazy to you, but I feel like if these moves were flipped, they would make so much more sense.
If these moves were flipped.
Like if Toronto hired Sorensen and Vancouver hired Fraser, I feel like I would be like, oh, those actually make sense.
I'll just sit here and say I wish both of these clubs hired Gio Savarese. So
that's great. I mean, Gio Savarese coming into that Vancouver team, they would be scary.
It builds a very stable club.
Jim Curtin going to that Vancouver team.
Yes. No, I mean, look.
I'm not writing off Sorensen yet. He might
do Jason, big Sorensen guy. Big Sorensen guy. All right, let's move on to the signings. We've talked enough about the coaches and the roster rules and everything like that. There's been a lot of moves that have happened. We'll get through as many as we possibly can and just take it from there, I guess. So Austin FC, the big move, the move that's been long awaited, Sebastian Driussi has been sold to River Plate. Reports coming out, it is a $10 million fee plus a sell-on percentage. The former River Plate man, where I think he won his Copa Libertadores, now exits MLS after, Austin hasn't been around that long, but he is a club legend at this point in his career and at this point of Austin's timeline. Last year, he had 12 goal contributions across 30 games. Kind of a shitty ending to his time in Austin, I'll be perfectly honest. He went from potential MVP candidate to guy that's just eating up too much contract and not producing enough. And it's kind of shitty because at one point, Sebastian Driussi was a lot of fun to watch in Austin.
Yeah, I think it's why, like, for me looking at this, a hell of a job to get 10 million plus a sell on. Like, it seems like a lot of money for how it ultimately ended there. I totally agree. I think the ending was disappointing. His last, I don't know, two or was it 3 years ago that he was crazy?
Was it 3 years ago he was the MVP?
It was 3 or 4 that he was like popping off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been kind of disappointing. I think Austin fans are probably sad to see him go, but also ready. I think it was time. He was not performing at that level that was expected of him after what he's shown he can do. But I think if I was an Austin fan, I'd be pretty excited about what they can do. And they've been active already. We've talked about Austin at actually like a decent amount, all the way from the playoffs through, when they first started making their moves to now. So I think they're going to continue to be active probably. I'll be interested to see where this team goes. Right now, I have no idea where I'm going to have them finishing next year because it's just such a kind of like a whole, like we don't know what they're going to look like fully. But I do think it was one of those things that like this was time.
I will say also, like, you just bought Brandon Vasquez for $10 million. You just sold Sebastian Driussi for $10 million.
Yeah, there's your money.
I think if you're just saying like, we broke even on the deal, I think you're going to get more goal contributions out of Vasquez in 2025 than what you would have out of Driussi. So I think Austin did some pretty good business there. They made 2 other signings in the last 2 weeks. 2 central midfielders, one, young central midfielder from Argentina, and then another who's, I think he's coming over from the Swedish first division. And there's a few more reports coming out of an Albanian international from Spain that's going to be coming over soon. Nothing confirmed there, so I don't want to dive too deep, but let's move forward. Jason, Charlotte FC finally get into the conversation. And
we got the Zaha news.
I was going to say we got to start with the big one, Eryk Williamson, but no, I'm just joking.
I mean, that is big. It's a very kind of weird move to me because it felt so right in Portland.
All right. Well, we'll talk about Williamson, but I think we should probably start with Wilfried Zaha. So the 32-year-old Ivory Coast international striker hasn't had the best of times since leaving the Premier League, going to Galatasaray, then going on loan to Lyon, where things haven't worked out. He hasn't been playing, everything like that. Wilfried Zaha is now to Charlotte on a loan through January of 2026 that also can get extended into I think June or July of 2026 off the top of my head. But the Turkish first division champion has 100 career goals to his name, almost 160 career goal contributions to his name, has played for some of the biggest clubs in the world, including Manchester United, again, Galatasaray, Lyon, everything in between. But he only has 1 assist in 7 games played this year.
Didn't even shout out Crystal Palace.
Sorry,
where he spent probably the most time.
My brain's not fully here. That's on me. Sorry.
It's only because my brother's like a huge Crystal Palace fan.
Oh, sorry to your brother on that.
We got to shout out the Palace boy, Wilfried Zaha. So.
The Palace boy. I mean, look, this is clearly a big time move. This is clearly a move that for a team where we were sitting there and it was like, if it's Patrick Ajuman not finishing the ball, then there is nothing else in the playoffs only a few months ago. Wilfried Zaha, if he is focused and dedicated to, I think, on the field performance, is a player and a move that can completely change how Charlotte FC is viewed in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think the accolades, the career speaks for itself with Zaha. I think the name speaks for itself. Like, people know him, I think for me, why I brought up Crystal Palace is because, like, my memories of him are at Crystal Palace, where he was just, like, at times literally carrying that team to a mid finish in the Premier League year after year after year. And it was just like, will he leave? Won't he leave? How long can he stay there? Like, he's this good. And they kept him for years. I don't know exactly the amount of time, but like, the consistency he showed there was massive. Obviously, since leaving, it hasn't worked out. But we know the caliber of player that he is. He's still 32 years old. That's still relatively young.
Yeah.
We've seen many players have success at that age. So
yes, he has another at least 2 seasons of, I think, scoring at a pretty high level.
Which is why the loan is perfect, right? Like, also,
as soon as the loan's done,
not living up to it, he's gone in 2026. So
yeah,
I think it's a I don't want to say safe, but because I feel like that has a bad connotation a little bit, but it is kind of like it's a good move for Charlotte, a move that I think puts them. We know the defense, right? We need the goal scoring, and this needs to be goal scoring. So,
and I will get to that point. I just want to say one more move about the attack. And Charlotte FC are bringing back attacking midfielder Pep Biel on loan from Olympiacos for the 2025 MLS season. He will not occupy a DP spot on this loan, which is the absolute biggest thing. But the 28-year-old
DP, did you say that?
Zaha is going to be a DP. He is going to be under a DP deal. So the 28-year-old, again, he's a Danish first division champion. He had 5 goal contributions in 11 games for Charlotte last year when he came over on that DP loan for half the season. He's impressed in a lot of places that he's gone. He's just never kind of really found that full-time home. And obviously another loan deal I'm not crazy about, but being able to add a player of his caliber to this roster where, yes, he had a bad red card mistake in the playoffs, but the on-field talent, on-field production, I think, shifted a lot of things for Charlotte at the end of the season last year. You pair him, even if, things are obviously not working out with Miguel Almiron to Charlotte, but even if you pair him with Wilfried Zaha and you have some young wingers that kind of take a step forward with that defense, I mean, this attack, and I think this team gets elevated to a whole new tier. We were talking all last year about tiers, right? I think this could elevate them to the top tier with the Columbuses and the Miamis of the Eastern Conference.
Oh wow! I did not think you would put them that high, but
I think they had a top 2 defense in all of MLS last year. Goalkeeper of the year, Tim Ream, Addison Malanda, Andrew Privet, Ashley Westwood was a fantastic lower block midfielder. The only thing that was missing was a constant threat. Now you have Pep Biel, Wilfried Zaha, Patrick Agyemang. I like to still have faith in Liel Abada as a winger that can maybe do something and develop into a top tier winger in this league. I think that alone is a complete game changer.
I mean, I wasn't disagreeing. I was just, I don't know. I feel like Columbus and Miami are just like their own, but whatever. I think you're right. I think if they can get consistent goal scoring, we're going to see a Charlotte team that is very scary, and they already were scary. That defense alone took them so far. Like, that it is not understated how important their defense was for them and consistent, and I think it's going to stay that way. I also, if we want to just bring in Eryk Williamson now, like, him coming in helps the defense, right? It's just another guy who is a very good defensive midfielder who can kind of sit there and do his thing. He knows the league. He's been around the league for years and years and years. Like, outside of injuries, I think both of us have always been huge fans of him and expected him to go abroad at some point with the talent that he has. So I think that just another move that moves the needle a little bit more for Charlotte, solidifies them a little bit more, gives them a little more depth. Like, that midfield, Swiderski, Biel, Ashley Westwood, Eryk Williamson, whoever they start, it's a scary midfield to go along with now, this with Zaha signing, to go with the already strong defense to go with the strong goalkeeping. So yeah, strong team across the board. I think
look,
I might have convinced myself a little bit. This team's kind of scary.
Look, Eryk Williamson, if he did not have his injury concerns, would be a player in Europe. I mean, he was on a very fast pace with the U.S. men's national team, starring in MLS. And then, he's still only 27. I think he's a strong central midfielder. He'll hold possession. He'll be able to transition that ball up the field into the attack just as well as I think getting back and holding that possession in the defense. And I don't know. I really like Charlotte right now. If there is a team that I'm going into 2025 super high on, it's Charlotte FC, which means I'll probably come crashing down with expectations soon enough. But it is what it is. Jason, let's go to your team. Let's go to your team, sir. Jonathan,
a lot of rumors coming out.
Jonathan Bamba, 28-year-old winger, coming over from Celta de Vigo to Chicago on a $2 million transfer fee, which is a cheap-ass deal for a DP winger. The former Ligue 1 and French Super Cup champion has 103 goal contributions to his name. Things have not worked out for him from the move from Lille to Celta Vigo. He only has 2 goal contributions in 14 games played this year in La Liga, but he's a La Liga player. He is a player who's played in Ligue 1. He is a player who has some caps for the Ivory Coast. He's a very good player, and this is the type of profile that comes into Major League Soccer and I think helps completely shift the roster. You have to be excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to keep myself in check a little bit because I've been sitting here many years in a row, I think, excited about certain moves and certain changes. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm cynical at this point, but I am really excited. I think, like my optimism has turned to, it's just, I used to be so optimistic. I still am. Don't get me wrong. I'm very excited about this move. I liked the Kuipers move. I think he succeeded in his first season, even with a very up and down rough season at times. And I think bringing in a winger, Hale Solis is still there on the wing. Bring in Bamba on the wing. Like the
Philip Zinkernakel. How are you going to forget about that dude, bro?
I mean, amazing name. Chris Mueller's still there, the workhorse. But I just think the service to Kuipers, the threat on the wings has been elevated just with this signing alone. I don't have an idea of where he'll finish goal contributions wise, but I would expect a decent amount. I think this probably does benefit Kuipers the most, which I know he can finish. Like, I just need better service. I need that final pass. That's what we lack. That's what we've been lacking. And I think there's potentially another move, potentially. I don't know, but I think Brian Gutierrez needs to take another step. And on this roster, it's definitely possible because with Greg, with the changes they've made, with the players that have come in that we've already talked about, Elliott coming in, helping that defensive line. Like, I like a lot of the changes. I'm excited. I'm just, I don't know. I don't want to I don't want to go into the season thinking we're going to be in the playoffs again, even though I know I'm going to pick them.
I will just say, to your point, Hugo Kuipers on a bad team last year had 10 goals. Jonathan Bamba, whether he's putting in, a nice cross, which is part of his game, or whether he's just occupying, a defender's brain.
Just dragging people to him. Yeah.
That's just going to open up more space for Kuipers and for Brian Gutierrez as well, right? The move, to me, I want to call it either like Joseph Paintsill or like Gabriel Peck-esque with the LA Galaxy last year.
Would I be ecstatic?
Obviously, the Galaxy did both of those guys, so that opened up a lot for Dejan Joveljic. But just one of these guys is huge, right? So I think Jonathan Bamba, you cannot, I think, do a better deal than that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's at the end of the day, $2 million for that is crazy.
Yeah, for a La Liga player, and Celta Vigo isn't like a club that's getting bounced around between the second and first division of Spain. It's that, they're a pretty solid top 10 club in Spain. Also, I'll quickly just run through. Fire also signed center back Sam Rogers from Lillestrøm. They signed the U22 initiative right back Leonardo Barroso from Sporting B in Portugal. He's a current Portuguese youth international as well. And then the news that dropped earlier today, they signed 15-year-old attacking midfielder Robert Turden to a homegrown deal from the Fire Academy. He is a current U.S. youth international. And according to Tom Bogert, it's a club record homegrown deal and the second largest homegrown deal in MLS history behind Kevin Sullivan. This kid's going to have a lot of expectations on him.
Greg was totally watching this kid when he was 12 or something. He's like, the U.S. national team.
This kid's a future national.
I will say it sounds like they are still looking as well to sign potentially an attacking mid, potentially another DP. So
Neymar isn't happening, folks. It's also just I'm
not gonna give my thoughts on that. You know them.
It's not happening, so it doesn't matter.
We're not unhappy about it.
FC Cincinnati, just want to quickly mention Alvaro Barreal, who was on loan in Brazil last year, is going back out on loan to Brazil, this time with Santos FC. So, the dream of him, Orejano, Lucho, Denke is dead. So there goes my excitement for Cincinnati. Let's go to Colorado. Hasn't done anything. We have
it's like Dallas, maybe
for listeners' sake. We have a giant tracker. Dallas. We haven't talked about.
They just promoted their entire youth team.
Literally, they made about 6 homegrown signings from North Texas SC to FC Dallas. One of them is Ricardo Pepe's little brother, Diego Pepe. That's just a cool little shout out. But the big move that we didn't talk about, and this also, I guess, kind of encompasses a Seattle Sounders conversation here as well.
Oh, yeah. I did want to talk about this, too.
I talked about this last week with Joe Lowry. Didn't get to talk about it with you, so I'll hold off on my opinions because I talked with Joe about it. But Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, both going over to the Seattle Sounders from FC Dallas on 2 separate deals. The Jesus Ferreira deal is more important one to mention, that it's $1.5 million in general allocation money with potential for another $800,000 in general allocation money. Leo Chu also went to FC Dallas from Seattle Sounders, an international roster spot and sell on percentage. Jesus Ferreira, obviously first ever player from an MLS academy to get a homegrown roster spot, to then get a DP spot, and now the first DP, that has gone through all of that, sent to Seattle, where he's not going to be a DP because he signed a new contract. And then obviously Paul Arriola there as well, MLS veteran, all that fun stuff. But Jason, give me your Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola take on the trade.
First off, I would like to say I will never give up on Leo Chu. Never. Okay. So
the players
put that out there. If he has no fans, I'm not alive.
Okay? The players that you have a soft spot for blow my mind, but continue.
I just find them, man. I find the ones I like, and they never leave, or never pan out. I don't know. Oh, man. Anyway, I'm super excited for Seattle. I think in terms of the business they've done, and I guess this, like you said, will be a Seattle conversation more than a Dallas conversation probably.
Can we just say for Dallas, I mean, I had some hopes for Dallas. I have zero hopes for Dallas now because Velasco.
I think what they got back for Ferreira is pretty good. That's a lot.
Good. I'm just saying, on field, Velasco's pretty much reportedly gone for a good amount of money, which will be great for Dallas. Dallas is rolling with the money. Paytar Musa and a bunch
they
of
love their money in Dallas. We already know that. So.
I think Eryk Quill's first season with Dallas is not going to be the best. It's going to be scraped together as much as possible.
Which I don't love when teams do this. They get a new coach and they're like, fire sale.
It's maybe it's a big summer expected. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's a big offseason.
For 6 months, he's going to be playing children.
16 homegrowns, Anderson, Julio, Leo Chu, and Paytar.
Yeah, Leo Chu is the vet on this roster. That's all you need. I said before, I love him.
Give me your Seattle.
I think that this totally takes into everything we said that Seattle needed at the end of the playoffs. kind of solves it, right? Like, especially without a DP deal for Ferreira, like, that's an amazing move. It's a proven goal scorer, a guy that's still insane, only 24 years old, coming over to Seattle. I like Paul Arriola coming. That kind of makes it easier probably for him. I'm assuming they get along. Going to a team that is built for success. I mean, Ryan Schmetzer, like, we know the accomplishments this team has had over the years. We know the expectations that Seattle places on themselves. And if they made no other moves this entire offseason, I think they would still be in a great spot and still be one of my top teams in the West and potentially one of the best teams to win MLS Cup next year. I think we even saw this year how close they came with that massive goal scoring issue. Similarly to Charlotte, I think they have addressed their issue very well. In almost in a less risky way than Charlotte. I don't know. Hot take.
I mean, again, going back to the, when MLS quality, how guys play in the league.
Yeah.
Like we were saying with the cash for player trades. I mean, this is almost that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be even more successful as well over in Seattle when he has, Obed Vargas, Christian Roldan, Albert Rusnak, Pedro de la Vega, Jordan Morris. Like, the talent is there on this team, not to mention how solid they are defensively every year. This is another one. I think actually the conversation with Charlotte could just be like repeated here. I think they solved their issue, which was a major issue, and are now in they might have already been in the top tier of MLS, but now they for sure are with this signing.
I'll say this. The only thing I think that separates them is this is Charlotte, but proven. Like we said, and like you said, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, Rusnak, and also to throw into the conversation, the club, Seattle, re-signed Albert Rusnak to a DP deal and re-signed Joao Paulo to a non-DP deal. So you have a bunch of proven players who have all played together a shit ton.
This team is consistent.
One of the best managers.
Crazy consistency.
And then even the two new guys that you're bringing in Arriola and Ferreira, have played with a bunch of these guys before for the national team. You're talking Jordan Morris, you're talking Christian.
Yeah, Jordan Morris is looking over. He's like, "Oh, you?"
You're like, "Oh, we're just gonna do the thing where we score 18 goals against Guyana." Like this is what we're gonna do right now. And look, I would pick the Seattle Sounders to finish first in the Western Conference if they were not in the Club World Cup, if they were not in Champions Cup, and if they were not in most likely one or the other of Leagues Cup or the Open Cup. We've seen the schedule congestion be a major factor for clubs, and it's the reason why I think Columbus didn't push Miami more for a Supporter Shield last year. I think we could see a very similar situation in 2025 with the Sounders probably finishing top 2 or 3 in the Western Conference, but maybe the reason why they're not going to go win a Shield is because of the kind of, schedule congestion, playing in multiple competitions, depth, injuries, all that fun stuff, right? So this move, I think, if you're looking strictly on paper, puts them in one of the best 2 teams in Major League Soccer, maybe best 3 teams in Major League Soccer, but again, the multiple competitions just scare me to be super, super high on them in terms of like they're going to win it all type of deal. Because if last year's Columbus team didn't do it, I don't know if I can have the same faith in this team.
I think Supporter Shield, maybe not. MLS Cup, fully in the conversation. I don't care where they finish.
No, I agree.
They're in the playoffs. Yeah. I'm terrified of this.
I agree with that fully. Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving away from Dallas, away from Seattle. This one's maybe a little more of a minor move, but I do just want to quickly mention that DC United looks like they have signed their next starting goalkeeper in 21-year-old former South Korean youth international Kim Kim Jun-hung from Yeonbuk Hyundai in the Korean First Division. He's won a Korean First Division and Korean Second Division titles. He had 34 appearances last year between two clubs in Korea. He went on loan. I was looking into it, like a weird half-season loan type thing. I don't know, but I know that initially, I think Tom Bogert was reporting he was going to be a U22 initiative player. He's coming over not as a U22 initiative player, not that I've read anywhere. So kind of, a good business there from DC. And, again, Choi Lasine kind of building out his roster there. Don't know if you want to say anything there, Jason, but we can keep it moving if you want.
Keep it going.
Houston Dynamo, they have sold Coco Carrasquilla to Pumas in Liga MX for a club record outbound transfer fee of $3.5 million. Obviously, Carrasquilla won a U.S. Open Cup with the Houston Dynamo and won CONCACAF Player of the Year as a member of the Houston Dynamo. They also don't know if it was a contract buyout, don't know if it was a mutual termination, but Sebastian Ferreira, their DP striker, Paraguay international, is gone. He hit free agency. And, again, a player who was part of that Open Cup winning team that never really lived up to the DP level there. But, Jason, that's two pretty large players on top of an Ache, gone as well, sized hole for Houston.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up him as Hector Herrera as well, because just like, I don't know, I'm confused a little. I'm concerned with Houston's roster build out right now, because you just lost. I don't have the stats up, but like half your goals and creations and stuff from last season, or a good chunk of it. You lost arguably two of your best players on the team. They still have some guys, but like, I don't know. I felt like this team was like maybe one or two moves away from being in that conversation for trophies, and they went the other way. They went completely the other way. And I get, the finish last season was bad, right? The red cards, the mistakes, some of it kind of seems like this was inevitable. It just sucks because I feel like they were close. Like they were very close to competing for an MLS Cup.
Yeah. I agree. Look, if you're looking at the players out, it's Herrera, it's Sebastian Ferreira, it's Coco Carrasquilla, and on top of it, Steve Clark, who, I'm not saying he's a world beater goalkeeper, but in terms of MLS goalkeeping, he's a pretty steady one. To me, it feels like Ben Olsen, Pat Onstead, this front office and this coaching staff's kind of maybe leaning a little bit more on work done in the past. Obviously, Lawrence Anali coming in last summer on a U22 deal, he was very good and tore his ACL. Nelson Quinones tore his ACL in preseason last year. They're probably hoping he's back, which is all fair, right? Like you hope that these guys are back and playing at the level that you acquired them for. It is going to be the need for some of these younger guys to step up, like a Brooklyn Reigns and Eryk Duenas that they signed or whatnot. But they do now have two open DP spots. They have their 3 U22 spots filled. So maybe Houston's looking to get one or two more DPs kind of figured out by the end of by the end of this transfer window. But I don't know. I do have my concerns as well. I'll agree with you there. Let's keep it moving. Sporting Kansas City didn't really do anything. The LA Galaxy. Oh boy, this is a conversation. So LA Galaxy, they made a few moves. First, they re-signed center back Maya Yoshida, who was their captain, played every single game for them in an MLS Cup championship season. Second, they signed Zanka, the Danish international center back from Anderlecht. If you remember, I can vividly remember watching Zanka play in a World Cup, play in Euros and everything like that. He's 34 years old. He's been around the Danish national team, the Danish First Division, Anderlecht, and I think some Premier League clubs as well. And then also the Galaxy, in terms of sending out players, have traded away Mark Delgado to crosstown rivals LAFC for $400,000 in general allocation money. LA Galaxy making some moves. Don't know if they're necessarily getting better. I don't think this is a bad roster or a team in a bad spot right now. But Jason, what's your take on, I guess, what the Galaxy are doing?
I mean, I think we texted about this a little bit. I'm sort of like, what are they doing? You know, like I want to give it some time because obviously this team is still good. It maybe one of the better teams still. The attack, outside of the fact that Puig is injured, which is just a shame because I think things might be a little different if he wasn't injured.
Yeah.
Like this attack is still terrifying. You still have Jovic, you still have Peck, you still have Paintsel. Marco Royce now in a full season. Let's see what he can continue to build on. I think a pretty solid finish. Um, it's a good team. I think the defense has always been a concern to me. It's something that I feel like I've a broken record bringing it up for the 100th time. I think some of these moves feel like trying to build a defense a little bit, but I don't know if it's necessarily like going to be a lockdown defense this year. And I'm hoping the Puig can get healthy as soon as possible so they can continue.
You can play a few games, yeah.
Yeah, so they can continue to just outscore people because I feel like it's going to be more of an issue this year than it was last year. But I've been wrong multiple times about this team before. So
the LA Galaxy I still think are a good team, a good roster. Yes, Maya Yoshida's 36, Zanka's 34. Yoshida played every single game last year for the Galaxy, and he's at a whole different fitness level. If you watch that man, he's ridiculous. And Zanka, again, an experienced at the club level and international level, all pairing with the young center back in Carlos Garces, who was an absolute stud last year, and I think is probably the biggest reason why Jalen Neal got traded away. On top of that, yes, Ricky Puig's injury sucks. They're not putting him on the season-ending injury list, which means that they're paying a DP salary that, is most likely not going to play a ton of games in 2025. Dejan Jovic has aged out of the U22 initiative contract, so his salary hits at a full hit there. So the Galaxy were in a tough situation. Mark Delgado is one of the best central midfielders in Major League Soccer, and they had to trade him away and almost replace him with Sean Davis in that trade that we talked about a few weeks ago, right? And I think we can transition right into LAFC if you want with Mark Delgado is now, like, I had some concerns about the LAFC central midfield, and now I'm like, nah, this feels pretty good. I know, and everyone listening, nothing is confirmed yet. I know Mateusz Bogusz might be going to Cruz Azul for $9 million. I know that's on the table, so Mateusz Bogusz probably out of this equation, but that still leaves you with Timothy Tillman, Mark Delgado, Igor Jesus, the U22 initiative, the mid that they just signed, and then Odin Holm, the central midfielder that they just brought over from Celtic. You have to have a little faith that the LSC front office knows what they're doing and have completely bolstered up that midfield.
I think just to like the Delgado conversation to keep it a little bit continued is like, I think part of what bothers me is that he went to LAFC. Like the Galaxy kind of bailed out their crosstown rival a little bit with that move, and it's not even a lot of money. It was $400K in GAM, which like what was this Ferreira one? It was like 1.5 million.
1.5 like, with potential for 800,000 on top.
Like is Ferreira 3 to 4 times the player Delgado is?
Maybe at his age, 29-year-old versus
29 is not old for soccer at all. Like I find it more disappointing that the Galaxy kind of just were like, you're our biggest rival. You're always competing for the top in the West. Let's help you, Like I think that makes it worse.
I agree with that. Part of me was like, am I just being like silly thinking that trading a very good player to a crosstown rival is like in MLS terms, right? Like there's rivalries, but is there like actual rivalries? I think there's a whole argument there. But like I was a little bit like, man, that's a silly thought. But I also kind of think like, yeah, if we want rivalries, you're not sending players to your rival team. Like you're just not doing that. You will send them to another team.
Less like, okay, if LAFC sucked, we're like, let's just say they finished where, San Jose finished last. Well, that maybe is a little low. But let's just say they were like not even in the playoffs. It's one thing to then send a player there. It kind of like, I don't know, like you said, to get him, what is it, to get him off the books or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe in that case, it's not as bad, but it's like you're handing one of the better midfielders in the league to a team that is directly competing with you for the top spots in the West. Literally, it came down to the final game of the season
How about
for
for the
who got
top
that
spot
seat.
in the standings, top spot for recognition in the city, top spot.
Supporter shield, trophies, fans,
Yeah.
literally everything. And I think it bothers me more that it's like, this isn't like handing it to San Jose or something where it's like, okay, yeah, go help that team. They need it, whatever. This is handing it to like literally your direct competition. And it's making the team, I don't know, 10 miles away or whatever. I don't know. How big is LA? LA is like 50 miles or 10, whatever
It's not 50.
it really is.
It is not 50. I can tell you that.
Yeah, once I said 50, I was like, that's actually that's quite far. But I don't know. It's 10 miles away, and you're just giving it to them.
Look, Mark Delgado, to me, should be a starter in this league, and he obviously lost his starting spot last year with the LA Galaxy.
It's 12 miles, 12.2 miles between.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that update. Mark Delgado is a starter in this league, and he deserves to be that. And I think with LAFC, he will be that. And then just to kind of close out the LAFC conversation, I mentioned the two other midfielders that they signed, but they also added Yeboah via free agency. Yeboah obviously was a long-time left wing back for the Columbus Crew, had a lot of success with them. Max Arfston, DeJuan Jones kind of took over that role, so Yeboah was gone, and LAFC, I think, now have added a pretty good backup left wing back, left midfielder to Ryan Hollingshead on that side. All right, let's keep it moving, Jason. Inter Miami. Don't know how much we want to say about it, just because they're two players that are very unknown to us, but they have signed Tadeo Allende, I'm going to go with. 25-year-old winger from Celta Vigo. MLS is just robbing Celta Vigo this window. On loan, and, he had 2 goals in 3
Celta Vigo has no wingers.
Celta Vigo has no one at this point. They also signed Venezuelan international Telesco Segovia, a 21-year-old central midfielder from Casa Pia in Portugal. He's coming over on a $2.5 million deal. I mean, adding a 21-year-old that has almost 10 caps for Venezuela, as well as an experienced winger who's played in La Liga and the Argentine First Division, just sounds like so much fun paired with Messi and the rest of that team,
Also, both relatively young with a decent amount of career. I mean, 94 career games at 21 is insane.
Yeah. And then 117 for Allende.
At 25, I don't know. If I'm one of them, I'm stoked right now.
I mean,
I'm sure they're going to succeed.
They're both going to get minutes. They're both going to get an opportunity to elevate their profile, probably, hopefully, maybe break into a national team and everything in between. So shout out.
And it adds some players that are just going to, like you said, get minutes, eat up some time, be solid players, whether they need it in any type of competition. Hopefully stay healthy all year, younger guys. So,
yeah. That's fair. All right, I'm moving down the list. I'm trying to look at the next club to talk about. And we're back in New England. We made some news here, some ground here.
Major question marks for this team.
I have my question marks, but the New England Revolution do add another big-time talent in Ignatius Ganago. The 25-year-old striker who is a Cameroon international from Nantes. He has 14 caps with the Cameroon international team, has not scored with them. It is going to be a 6-month loan that has the possible to extend it for a full year loan, so another 6 months. He has 14 games played with Nantes this season with 0 goals, 0 assists. He has not been scoring well since the move to Nantes, apparently. So maybe this is another loan move to try to, get him back into the Cameroon national team picture and whatnot. But I don't know, Jason. I said this to you about the Revs overall. We can talk about the million moves that they've made, and sure, maybe the talent is an upgrade. I just have my concerns with the amount of new players, the amount of new players to the league, and the amount of new players who have never played with each other. Are those fair concerns?
I think they're fair. I also think, first of all, I don't love a 6-month loan. It feels like if he succeeds, he's just gone, and if he doesn't, it's just a waste. Also, I don't understand how this, if I'm Campagna, am I what are you doing?
I mean,
what? I don't know. To me, it's like they just brought in a 24-year-old striker, and sure, that like you said, there's lots of competitions, lots of games. Not it's like a crazy amount for New England though. Like it's not this team is desperate for bodies at this point. So
to me, it feels like it's if he works out in 6 months, all MLS loan deals have an option to buy. So
yeah,
you're sitting there potentially with two really good strikers, right? And I think Ganago can bump out wide as well to a wing spot. If it doesn't work out, low risk, move him on, like move him back to France and it's whatever, right? And I think that's why they also signed Maxi Urruti. Potentially, if Ganago doesn't work out, you have Urruti, who's a MLS experienced striker to back up Campana, all that stuff. There's just, for me, way too many question marks that if things don't go well for the first 4 months of the MLS season, Caleb Porter's getting fired. Like, that's just what it feels like to me. But maybe
I hope not, because like I think what he's trying to do is at least interesting. I don't know. I feel like him getting fired, it's tough because it's a lot of moves. I think you're looking around at Carles Hill and he's going, who the heck are all these people? Who else is there from last year? Noel Buck? I don't know. Brandon Bye, maybe?
I was going to say, I think Carlos Hills, like Brandon Bye, might be the only dude, and Andrew Farrell. Andrew Farrell's been there for forever. But like those three are maybe like the only dudes who've been around since he won an MVP. You know, like it's crazy.
Just like too many new bodies, which is also why I think he deserves a little bit more than 4 months if things are going bad.
I just think last year was so bad that like he doesn't have the
longest. Let's put it this way: like, let's say it doesn't work for the first 4 months. That's not that much time, right? That's probably like the first 15 games, whatever. And you fire Caleb Porter, you're essentially just like, we now have a bunch of players who don't know how to play together, who now are going to get a new either interim coach, which is going to just finish the season before a new coach comes in. You're never going to get it right. So you, at least in my opinion, have to go all in right now. Go all in with Caleb Porter and say you have a year. If it doesn't work after the year, I would almost say a year and a half. If it's not good mid next season, and it's tough because they want to win. The owners want to win. They want money. They want fans. But
they're
it's like
spending money too.
But you're screwed if you fire him after 6 months. If he's gone in July, I don't see this working at all. If he's gone a year and a half, or if we wait a year and a half from now, maybe they're towards the end of the season, we're seeing improvements. This is a team, like you said, that's completely new. I don't feel like you can just – you have to give it time.
I don't disagree with you because I want to see clubs and coaches get more opportunities to build out their projects. I just think 2024 was a really bad season for what Caleb Porter had. And now it's like, okay, we're giving you even more.
Hey, I picked New England to finish like third, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I picked them to be in the playoffs at least. Yeah. And they failed at that. And look, a lot of the profiles seem great. A lot of the profiles make sense, especially for the players we don't know. And the players we do know, like a Campania, these are good players. It's just, will it gel, and will it gel in enough time for Porter not to get screwed?
I guess, like, what are we considering, like, failed, right? Like, if we're in July in their –
I think if 15 games are played –
outside of the play-in game by, like, a spot or two, 3 to 7 points, I don't consider that, like, a failure.
I think if you play 15 – let's just call it 15 games. I don't know, the first 15, 20 games of this. Let's call it 20. That's a lot, 15. If –
like 15 is like a third of the season. Just say
if you play a third of the season, 15 games of the season, and you have anywhere close to 6 to 8 losses on your book, Caleb Porter is gone. I'm just saying that.
Yeah. I mean, 6, maybe not. 8, yeah, probably.
All right, let's move it forward out of New England.
It depends on the rest of those draws.
We've given New England a lot of love this offseason. And
love, I don't know if that was what we would call
we've
love.
given them a lot of conversation.
A lot of confusion.
Let's go to the Red Bulls. New York Red Bulls have sold left back, USMNT left back John Tolkin to Holstein Kiel in the Bundesliga for $3 million plus a sell-on percentage. I mean, look, John Tolkin the last 2 years have been on a different level in terms of left backs and I think just players in general in this league. He had 6 goal contributions in 33 games last year that helped lead the Red Bulls to an MLS Cup. He has 29 goal contributions in his career in 135 games. Kid's still young. Obviously, some off the field weird social media comments that the Holstein Klein fans are not the biggest fan of, and he has to deal with that. But good business for the Red Bulls to move on to a player who's broken into the national team and are giving them another opportunity in a top league in the world. So it was time for Tolkin to move on, and I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Omar Valencia is going to be the next John Tolkin. This is how they do it. So
yeah, I mean, look, the left back hole is there. Kyle Duncan has played some left back before. I think last year he played as like the primary backup left back. I think like Cameron Harper can do it. I think Dylan Mialis can do it, but there's no true seasoned experienced left back on this roster.
And you're also filling in 6 goal contributions from your left back position, which is great.
100%.
Like 100%. That's insane. I think he was arguably the best, if not, top 3, 4 left backs in the league.
Yeah.
2, I don't know. He's up there.
It's
absolute
not a
pain in the ass to root against.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not the best for him, but whatever. Let's keep it moving. Orlando City, they've signed the U22 initiative winger Nicolas Rodriguez from Fortaleza in Colombia, not the Brazilian Fortaleza. The 20-year-old winger, like I said, arrives on a U22 deal. He had 8 goals and 6 assists in 41 games for Fortaleza last season. I mean, he really broke out down in Colombia last year, and it's Orlando kind of just feel like they're going to do what Orlando normally does with their U22 signings, sign them, and then in like 2 years from now, they're going to be like the star of the league.
Make a ton of money eventually.
Oh, and yeah, they also do that too, is they sell them on for sure. So
another guy with a lot of career games at 20 years old.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you're right. 73 games. I think down in like your domestic.
I mean, there's a lot of competitions now, I guess. It's maybe easier than it used to be, but every time I see like 70 plus games and they're not even 21, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, you're like, what is this?
Like, how much experience do you need, dude?
All right, Portland Timbers. We already talked about Eryk Williamson. That is a pretty big hole left in the midfield, even though if he had his ups and downs in playing time. But they tried filling that and have filled it with 28-year-old defensive midfielder Joao Ortiz, the Ecuadorian international, is coming over from Independiente del Valle, where he's won a Copa Sudamericana, he's won an Ecuador Cup, an Ecuadorian Super Cup, and everything in between. Right, obviously has impressed enough, and he is an in his prime player to get some caps for his national team, and honestly just feels like another dude who is going to fill the Eryk Williamson hole on this roster. Yes, but also I think I didn't put him his spot in the depth chart, so that's my bad. But
I was looking at that and I was like, what?
Yeah, like, where is he? That I think is also probably going to eat up some minutes for Diego Chara, who's almost 40 and can't do it like he used to do it. So I think it's a good move to shore up that midfield. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like player in or player out, player in as replacement a little bit with the Williamson thing, but yeah.
Exactly. They also signed Kevin Kelsey, and that was today. The U22 striker that was on loan from Shakhtar Donetsk to Cincinnati last year. Cincinnati, I think, traded away his rights to Portland, and now he's on Portland. A reported $5 million fee, which is fucking wild. But
there's a lot of money. Oh my god.
He's 20 years old with, if we're going to talk about games played, with almost 100 games played to his name. So fair enough, I guess. Let's move forward. Sorry we saved this one for this late in the fucking episode. Jesus Christ. But Chicho Arango.
It popped up. I was like, oh man, we didn't.
I completely forgot that we didn't talk about that. So that's my fault, everyone. Let's finish up the episode with Chicho Arango. I don't think there's anything else that can't wait a week or whatnot. But Chicho Arango.
San Diego. Well, I mean, this will be a San Jose conversation.
Yeah, this is a San Jose and an RSL conversation. So Chicho Arango has been traded from RSL to the San Jose Earthquakes for $1.4 million in general allocation money and an international roster spot. The Colombian international striker has won an MLS Cup and a Supporter Shield in MLS and has been arguably one of the best strikers in the last half decade. Last year with RSL, he had 17 goals and 6 assists in 34 games. Obviously, it's a little skewed because he was such a hot first half of the season, but things kind of pandered out, and I only think he scored 1 goal from the All-Star game on. So if we just want to talk about it from an RSL perspective first, huge hole. I think they're clearly were not happy behind the scenes off the field with Arango, and they're moving on from their star man that they, I think, spent the club record to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they got enough in return. Maybe that's a San Jose conversation, but I do think from the RSL standpoint, another team maybe similar to what I said about Houston, where it's like they were very, very, very close. Like they were a piece or two away from competing at the highest level. I mean, they were already competing at the highest level, right? They finished third, I think, in the West. I think the second half of the season, like you mentioned, Chicho Arango was not the same player, whether that was due to the time missed due to suspension, I think. But I don't know. I think maybe there was, like you said, more stuff behind the scenes that we don't necessarily know all about that they were kind of ready to move on from. But it's from a on-field standpoint, brutal loss. Like I don't know how you replace that. I think this team still has a lot of talent on it. You still have Diego Luna, who at this point is just maybe their best player. I don't know. Emeka Anelli's still very good. Justin Glad still. That's a decent team here, but I don't know. They lost their provider basically.
I think they went from potentially competing in the top of the Western Conference to now, okay, we're competing for a lower tier playoff spot, which sucks because
I think it's a team that might be competing for the play-in.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's premature, but like
6 to 9.
They lost a huge amount. Like,
bro, between Chicho Arango, who else am I talking about? Chicho Arango, the Anderson Julio, and then the winger that they sold to France last summer that his name is completely escaping me.
Oh,
that was like that was like all of their goals, like in 2024. Yeah. Like literally, that was how many goals are just gone from this roster. And no offense to these players, but you replace them with Elias Manuel, Tyler Wolf. Like, I just don't think RSL are going to be good next year.
I mean, you lost just from Chicho Arango alone 23 goal contributions. At one point, the guy was on pace with Messi. Actually outpacing Messi.
Literally. He was
for like a decent sample size. It was like 10 games in, and it was like, is this going to continue?
And look, I have faith in Pablo Mastroeni, and he always produces more than the talent, and he always gets the most out of his guys. But this might be the most Mastroeni has to prove his
but getting the most out of this like might be what you said, an away playoff game or a play-in spot. Like that might be the most. Like that might be what a good coaching job, but this is the best they can do now. Where it's like, again, it's like, where were we at? We were at a team that was maybe a signing or two away from competing for a supporter shield. Like we've gone backwards.
They got worse, 100%.
And teams have replaced them in the standings, and that is the biggest thing. It's like, did you get better? No, you didn't.
I agree.
Quite clearly did not.
Let's finish up with the San Jose conversation in terms of teams that I think have clearly gotten better outside of adding Chicho Arango.
I don't think it would have taken much, but they've definitely gotten better.
Outside of Chicho Arango, the club has signed Josef Martinez, the former MLS MVP, the former MLS Golden Boot winner, best 11, has won everything in this league. He's only 31 years old. He had 14 goals and 3 assists for Montreal last year, which is stupid numbers that I didn't think Josef put up in, just kind of, I don't know. I forgot he was up there at certain points. I'll be honest. Out of that, San Jose has also sold current U.S. and Mexico youth international goalkeeper Emi Ochoa to Cruz Azul and Liga MX for $2 million. He only had one appearance for San Jose in his entire career. He played primarily with their second team, the Town FC, in MLS Next Pro. A very good goalkeeper that, you know, is looking like he's going to lean towards the Mexican national team, but the kid's a ridiculous
They
talent.
got more money for selling him than they did for than how am I trying to say this? Chicho Arango costs less.
Yeah. And Bruce Arena is doing the Bruce Arena thing out in San Jose, and it's kind of unbelievable to see.
I mean, he's gotten his guys. We talked about that, and now he got Chicho Arango, and now he got Josef Martinez. Like this team may have taken RSL spot in the standings at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, the defense still needs help. I'm going to sit here and say I can't overlook that. What, 2 of the 4 starters right now, roughly, are, and the starting goalkeeper is the same 3 of 5 players who were a part of the league's worst goal scores allowed in a season last year. That still exists. I'm not going to overlook that. And I don't know how much faith I have in Nick Lima at right back and David Romney at center back to take them completely out of that gutter. But this team is a lot better. Obviously, I think San Jose still has some work to do, but I think they've put themselves right in the conversation of San Jose playoff team 2025.
Also, a good attack takes off a ton of pressure from the defense.
I agree.
You now have a pretty solid attack here, at least on paper.
I fully agree with you. And honestly, Jason, that was all of the moves that I had highlighted outside of Toronto FC signing Tio Corbeanu on loan from Granada. But I mentioned it. So boom, there you go. So that is all of the news that we missed last week and this week. And 90-minute episode long. But if you're an MLS weirdo, if you're an MLS sicko, if you found us because extra time no longer exists, whatever it may be, welcome, thank you, and enjoy the MLS drama and fun and everything in between. Jason, thank you for another week, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Again, 2 episodes a week. Monday, interview. Thursday, Jason and I. Get used to the new schedule. Thank you, guys. Bye.